Hi, I'm Senior Grandmaster Jimenez from Kajukenbo Live, coming out of South Lake Tahoe, California. Today we have our My Story, Like It or Not, Chapter 3. It's the tournament scene from beginning to end. But before I go on to that, I want to shout out to Grandmaster Paul Lozada. We got his book today in the mail, and I watched, or I read actually a few of his chapters, and it's a really good book. You don't want to miss out. If you want to buy this book, go to officer187.com and you'll be able to order your book. It's a really good book, so don't miss out on it. Okay, so this is how we're going to start. Is when I first started martial arts with, like I said, Senior Grandmaster Vargas, I was only a white belt, and back then a lot of the students he had used to go to all the tournaments. And his studio and Bill Owen's studio at the time was the two top studios in the Bay Area. Nobody really beat them at all. He had champion fighters and stuff. And I remember the first time a tournament came up, and all my peers in our class, they were going to go. And I wanted to fight, and they were all, yeah, fight. I go, yeah. And then I made the mistake, like most people do. Well, I'll just go watch the first one, and I'll fight in the second one. And of course, I was only a young guy, and Senior Grandmaster Vargas, or we call him Sifu, kind of looked at me with that shitty ass grin, and because everybody says the same thing. And he says, "Are you sure? Because you're probably gonna miss out." I go, no, I just want to watch to see what, it's about first before I do this. So I went. It was at the Oakland Auditorium, and like he was right. What a big mistake I made. I went over there, and I'm watching my peers fight, and I was just like, oh my God. I go, this is like so great. I go, I cannot believe the way this tournament was. And back then, there was tons and tons of people competing from all over. So, went back to the studio, and trained, and then the next tournament came up. It was Captain Weber Days. Ron Marchini threw it in Stockton. So all the students were going to go. Tamika-san got us all ready and stuff. Like, okay, I'm going to go. Remember, I'm only a young guy. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm shitting my pants because of my first tournament. I was, scared shitless, and I'm thinking, oh my God. I still remember this day, sitting up in the stands in the second story bleachers at the Stockton Civic Auditorium, glued to my chair, but both my hands were like on top of the chair, holding on to it. And I kept telling Tammy, win, when's the next one? Don't worry. And I'm going down there, and I'm watching all my peers warming up, and they're just having a jolly old time. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Anyway, they call my division, so I go down there. And there's quite a few people in the division. Anyway, so I started fighting and stuff, and then it just like most people fought in tournaments, is like you're nervous and scared, but once they say go, you forget who's there, and all you see is that one person ahead of you. Anyway, long story short, I wound up beating everybody, and I took third place, and I could not believe that. I got this big old trophy. And it was only third place, but it was still, I placed. And my peers, they all lost. And I remember going back to my seat in like an awe, like tear like an awe. I just couldn't believe it. I'm holding this big trophy. And I had it for years until my fire. So that was my first tournament. So I went home, and I was excited to show my mom and dad, they were all excited. And then back then, you always brought your first trophy into the studio. And leave it there. Well, I'm not going to lie. I was only a kid, and it was my first karate tournament trophy, and I'm looking at it going, geez. And then that Monday come in, Tammy's out, where's your trophy? So I'm like, I'll bring it. And, and Sifu Vargas didn't say a word. He just kind of looked at me, but I can read his face that, he's like, where's your trophy, So I didn't bring him for about 2-3 weeks. And I kept getting a little wisecracked. Like I feel a kind of cold shoulder. So I said, okay, well, I'll bring it. So I brought the trophy, and I sat it gave it to him. He sat it right there by his office. And I stayed there by his office for about a month. And then one day I came in, and the little kick man was broken off of it. And I was hella pissed. I was like, well, I got my trophy. He's like, oh, it fell. So I'm like, okay, well, can I go home and fix it? He says, sure, sure. Go ahead and take it. So I took it, went home and fixed it, and I left it there. I didn't bring it back. So later on down the line, he threw a big banquet, and he had a lot of people there, a couple hundred people. And he gave everybody in the studio a trophy except for me. I remember my dad going, well, how come Tony didn't get one? Of course, his ears are flapping, and he thought, well, Tony's got his trophy at home. See, those are the kind of things I told you in the second chapter. That's what he would do. So, anyway, long story short, the next tournament was the Internationals in Long Beach. Well, I'm not realizing that was the biggest tournament probably in the world at that time in the 70s. So I'm thinking, oh shit, I won a trophy in the first tournament. I could do it again. So I remember we got down there. We all piled like he did. He always piled everybody in one U-Haul, or not U-Haul, motorhome, and we all went down there. And then of course they slept in him and John Bear and those guys slept in the RV, and all of us we had to sleep in the Ivy in the parking lot at the Long Beach Auditorium. I mean, that's just the crap that he pulled. But anyway, I remember walking in the auditorium going, oh my God. There was like thousands and thousands of people. It took us like almost 3.5 hours to get to the front door. And there was like 250 people in my division. I mean, and I'm only a white belt. I didn't know any better. And I remember fighting, and I remember I lost in the first fight actually, and I got caught with a ridge hand right across my mouth. It cracked me right across my lips, and loosened my 2 front teeth because back then they really hit hard. So I was like, it was just a lesson learned because it kind of, I expected because I won the first one that I could win another trophy, and it didn't work that way. So we went back, and I was kind of like upset and stuff like that, and then I started competing, and I started winning, winning, and how I got into forms, I noticed one of the students did forms, and Tammy Kasani used to always do forms, and she always took first place. And so I said, well, I'm going to try that. Remember, I'm only a white belt. So I tried it, and again, I got third place in the first time, and right in front of great grandmaster Al Novak. That's the first time I met him, this huge, giant guy, just staring at me. I'm only a kid, shitting my pants in front of him. Anyway, I wound up taking third place. And then after that, we started competing a lot. And how I met Grandmaster Willis, we call him now. Back then we just called him Jimmy or Jimmy Jive. How I met him is we didn't wear feet pads. But I had a pair of feet pads that I bought because they're cool things to have karate stuff. But we never used them. And I remember fighting at the Oakland Auditorium. And I remember looking down and I was like, hey, where's my feet pads at? And I remember looking out there. And I'm like, what the hell? I didn't really know him at the time. And he wouldn't take my feet pads off my bag and wouldn't use my feet pads. They were all sweaty and smelly and stinky. And I'm like, damn it. So then that's how I got to know Grandmaster Willis. Then after that, we started talking and stuff, and then we started hitting the tournament circuit, just me and him, because Vargas and those guys started slacking down. And it was, for years, just me and Grandmaster Willis, and we'd go to tournaments, and we'd win all kinds of trophies. We never lost. Never lost. I never lost. And I always brought something back. And I always did 5 events. I did weapons, I did open, I did Kempo, I did a soft style, and I fought, and a lot of times we did teams. So sometimes we'd bring home 5 or 6 trophies. And if you won grand champion, you got another big trophy. And so we filled up my mom's house pretty much with trophies all over. But that was my thing back then. I just couldn't wait to go to tournaments. I just couldn't wait. And I remember watching, these guys, Ernie Reyes and George Chung and stuff, and those guys at the Oakland Auditorium doing their demonstration at nighttime. And I was thinking to myself, man, one day, I go, look at those guys. And my mom was sitting next to me. She goes, well, don't worry. One day, he goes, you'll be up there with those guys. I said, I go, no way. I go, those guys are like unreal. And that day came that I was up there with those guys on that stage. So, your dreams do come true. And so I remember I used to get all the karate magazines. And I used to like dream when I was a little kid of, oh my God, I'd love to be in a karate magazine. That was my ultimate thing, when I'm in a karate magazine. And I took first place at a tournament one time, and I told that story before. In the back of the Karate Illustrated magazine, there was a little blurb about that big in the back. You probably needed a magnifying glass to see it. And it was results of that one tournament. And I remember seeing my name. And it was, Tony Jimenez. I didn't go by Anthony or why. It was Tony Jimenez. And I was like, oh my God. I was jumping up and down like a little kid, my name's in this magazine. Of course, went out there and, bought a couple copies, and stuff. You couldn't see it. I mean, it was literally, you needed a magnifying glass. And then later down in my career, I wound up one of the top competitors, and I was in Karate Illustrated magazine 4 years straight. If you go on my website, you'll see the page and everything in the magazine. But yeah, we just started going to all the tournaments, and we just started, like I said, just dominating people. And a few people that a couple of fights I had in forums that I kind of remember, that kind of like set things apart, is his name was Henry Martinez, little tiny guy, and he used to do hardstyle. He didn't fight. He didn't fight. He used ass kicks, but he was used to do forums, and he always took first place in forums, and then he did the sides and weapons. And I couldn't beat him. I just couldn't beat him. And then finally one day, I beat him. And after that, I beat him every time. And then he wound up quitting and not competing anymore. But he was like the main guy that I really wanted to beat back then. I couldn't beat like George Schungner like that. They were too good. But even though I was a top competitor, they were just too good. And one of my top fights, I was only a green belt. And Senior Grandmaster Ligera had his students, the Crazy Dragons, out there. And people that know about tournaments, they know who the Crazy Dragons are. So long story short, his name was Donald Hubman. And he was, at the time, before Satch and Percy and those guys came in, he was Greg's top guy. They used to call him Crazy Legs because his feet were so fast. And I used to see that guy and I'd go, damn, that guy's feet's fast. And I trained so hard with my feet, and I knew my feet were just as fast. So one day I worked up with green belts, and it came down to me and him for first and second. And let me tell you what a fight. We had the whole auditorium there, and they all went to our side, and we went back and forth. I mean, just both of us, our legs were flying 100 miles an hour. I mean, they were just zinging everywhere, and this is lightweight division. It wasn't heavy like I am now. And we went back. Finally, I wound up beating him. And that was probably one of my best fighting trophies that I had, was beating him, because at that time, he was their top fighter. And then after that, the first time I ever fought black belt division, me and him was the first one to fight. And I beat him again. And then, but those are the kind of fights that I kind of remember a lot, was those. And then just competing all over. I just couldn't wait to do it. And the same thing with Grandmaster Willis, it was just me and him every tournament until he went in the Army. And then it wound up being myself. And I would take a couple of little students from Vargas's that wanted to go. And that was it. And a lot of tournaments, I went by myself. All my stuff. Then my mom would come with me and stuff sometimes, with my dad. And we enjoyed that. And like I said, I wound up being one of the top competitors, in the 80s and 90s, and, they were really good times, And then the reason I kind of slowed down a lot was I wound up having my own studio. And myself, like a lot of times, I would compete. It would be kind of cool. I'd be competing for, let's say, Kata Grand Champion. And one of my black belts, Tony Virchev, or Grandmaster Baca, would be fighting for Grand Champion black belt division. So I take Grand Champion, they take Grand Champion. So we bring home both trophies, big old trophies and stuff. I remember one time I took a 6 foot. I was bigger than 6 foot trophy, and I drove my Rolls Royce to the tournament, and it was so funny it wouldn't fit, so I had to put it through one window and out the other window, and we had to drive home on the freeway in that car with that trophy hanging out. It was at Tony Daniels' tournament. I took grand champion in fighting, and that's how I got the trophy back home. But it was just kind of funny on that. But I started watching. I started getting more interested in watching my students compete than more myself. I got more excited that way. And my students, we trained hard at our studio, and I had about 11 students that would go to every weekend to go to tournaments. We had a lot of students, but we had about 11 of them. Every weekend they would go. And it was like Eric Souza, Doug Catani, Alex Shepard, Grandmaster Baca, who else? Jeff Gilbert, Rusty Keppard, Jim Burns, and a few other ones. And it was kind of cool because we'd start like from Pee Wee Division in the morning. And I'm not bragging, it's just fact. We started like in the Pee Wee Division, first place. In junior divisions, first place. Teenage, first place. All the way up to the black belt division, first place, grand champion. My guys always did this. And we kind of dominated the tournament circuit for a long time. We just, there was 11 of us, like I said, and from little kids all the way up, and you always took first place and beat everybody. And then if I competed, I took first and a grand champion and stuff. And then we did that for like almost 20 years. Every weekend, we were at all the tournaments and stuff like that. And I put out some top black belts. I put out Jim Burns, that wound up being California State champion 5 years in a row. Grandmaster Baca, that's taken I don't know how many grand champions. Doug Catani, he's went from little guy to black belt division, taking grand champion. Then he went to West Point, and he was on the Army West Point team in karate and dominated that. Alex Shepard, he competed a lot with us, and he was a banger. He's only a blue belt, but he'd whale away, take first place. Couldn't wait till the next one comes. So it just went on and on and on and on, and that's what we did for the tournament scene. And it was just an exciting time because we just couldn't wait. And like I said, the California Karate League, Doug Catani, Eric Souza, Jim Burns, Rusty Keppard, they all took California Competitor of the Year. And we had probably, I don't know, well, I had about 1,000 trophies all in my studio before it burnt down. Wrapped the building, and I didn't have that thing you had to bring your first trophy in. Tony Virchev would bring him in a lot of times, his grand champion, put him in the window and stuff, but most of the time, I just told him, no, you keep your trophies at home, because I knew how it felt like when senior Grandmaster Vargas did that to me, But it was just fun. And like I said, one of the first times that I was in, my picture was in Karate Illustrated magazine. I didn't know it was going to be in there, and I went to the karate supply place, and I was fingering through the magazine, and all of a sudden I go, boom, there it is. I just turned the page, and I was like, oh my God, that's me. I'm standing there, I had my swords and stuff, and that was it. But like I said, for a year straight, because I was rated, they had my name in there and stuff. And then Grandmaster Willis, he competed in the Army. When he was stationed out, he did tournaments and stuff, and did pretty good. And then when he came out, he started competing again, and he did all right. And he doesn't compete no more. But for Grandmaster Vargas's school, it was basically after Tammy left, because Tammy always won. It was basically me and Grandmaster Willis that represented him in all the tournaments, and between the both of us, we won a lot of trophies and stuff. But like I said, the tournaments is like an icing on the cake, and it's funny because you see a lot of times, and a lot of these karate guys will agree with me on this. Most of the martial artists see each other more than sometimes they see their own relatives, because they see them every weekend at the tournaments. And no matter where they're at, I don't care if they were in San Francisco, the next weekend they were in Fresno or Las Vegas or wherever, we went. But the difference is now compared to then. Back then, when you went to a tournament, there was a lot of people. So when you took third place, second place, and I very seldom ever took third. I took those, when I first started, I took those 2 thirds. But after that, I usually took first or second, always. Usually always first. I took like 35 first places in a row one time. But there was a lot of people that you had to compete against. You just didn't compete against 1 or 2 people and then tell everybody you're a world champion and, and you beat like 2 people. Or you do kata and you pay for, 10 events and you do the same form, nobody in your division, and you line up 10 trophies and go, look what I won. And a lot of people don't understand that. Because back in the day, when you won, you won. I mean, we fought in a team one time, me and Grandmaster Willis, it was Vargas's team, and it was a battle. And we took first place finally. And I remember my mom and dad took me and him to the Silver Dragon in Oakland. And we had the balls of our feet, we had no skins on them. It hurt like hell walking in there because that's how hard we fought that day on that team, especially on the team. But those are the times that when you won, you won. It was exciting. You came home, you're bruised up or whatever, you're hurt. Like I said, I broke my little toe and I was only a purple belt. My mom wrapped it up, told me to get out there. I got 2 more fights to go. That's just the way it was back then. Like I said, when we first started, we didn't wear hand pads or shin pads. We wore shin pads. We didn't wear feet pads. I wore shin pads. I wore hand wraps, and I'd wrap medical tape on there. I told the story already. So it would hit, and of course, in a mouthpiece and a cup. I always wear a cup. That was mandatory in our studio. You had to have a cup on. I know a lot of people didn't. I remember I fought. I was only in brown belt. I fought the Armed Forces tournament in San Francisco, and it was only at that time. I think I must have been about 19, 20, something like that. And I fought, and I was lining up, and everybody's doing a cup check. And the guy next to me, he was probably about 40 years old. And I remember Tony Daniels was a center referee, and he said, everybody knock on their cup. Well, everybody's knock, and this guy's like, oh, I don't wear a cup. And I'm thinking, as I go, you don't wear a cup? He goes, nope. He goes, nobody's ever fast enough to kick me in the groin. So I said, oh, okay, whatever, So who do you think I have to fight first? I got to fight him. The fight lasted 17 seconds. Literally 17 seconds. We lined up, hit hands, boom, they went, go. I'm all, pow, kicked him right in the nuts. Boom, fell to the ground, just rolling. Because that was my favorite shot. And then he gets up, and he's, oh, you okay? Yeah. Ready? Go. Boom, kick him in the balls again. Boom, down he go. Down he went rolling. And because back then, you were allowed to kick to the groin. So they finally got him up, and he should have stopped right then, but he was just standing there, and then I just back knuckled him in the head, smacked him one, and then the fight was over, 3-zip. And it lasted 17 seconds. Because first of all, always wear your cup. And the number 2 big thing you do is you don't tell your opponent you don't wear a cup and that no one's ever fast enough to kick you in the groin. And that's what happened. And I wound up winning the tournament or that division. And then... but little fights like that kind of like stick in your head, that when you're fighting, stuff like that. And like I said, the forms and stuff, I competed on some of the biggest stages. And it was a great time, and it's something I would never give up. Like I said, I lost all my trophies in 1992 because of the fire, and we'll get to that in another chapter. And I came back in 1993. I came back out and started competing again. And I won 2 or 3 grand champions and some trophies, just to kind of put them in the window because they all burned. And then I stopped again and stuff like that. But it's good. Like I said, I had a fun time, and my students dominated, and it was just a really good time all through the whole year. And towards the end, I started going to my house in Tahoe on the weekends, and I kind of like just not going to a lot of tournaments because it got kind of slow towards the end. It just got kind of like monopolist with the cheating and the politics, and I didn't want to deal with it no more. And after 20 years of not missing one, and I think the only one I ever missed in 20 years was when my daughter Nicole was born. And I remember on June 6th, it was Ernie Reyes' tournament, and she went into labor that day, so I couldn't go. That's the only tournament I missed for 20 years straight. So I hope you enjoyed this about the tournaments. Our next chapter, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, would be about how I started Jimenez Martial Arts Studios. And that's going to be a pretty interesting one. So if you have any questions on this, when you see the video, please subscribe and leave a message if you like it. If you don't like it, tell me you don't like it. I don't hurt my feelings, and or if you want to hear something different, or a question you want to ask, don't be shy. Leave it on the thing. All right, I'm Senior Grandmaster Jimenez. I'm coming from Kajukenbo Live out of South Lake Tahoe, California. I'll see you next time.